Hi, my name is Adam Shively. I'm the host of Podcasting Business School, and I am the creator of the Podcast Growth Coach Certification Program. And today I'm here to brag on my newest certified podcast growth coach, Sue Willoughby. Sue has really excelled as she's gone through the certification process, which was not easy, by the way. She completed all the homework. She did all the testing. She even did a one-on-one final exam with me. And I was just continuously impressed from week to week, the improvement that she made. And I'm really impressed at the creativity that she displayed, but also her ability to effectively communicate and coach people. So if you're somebody who feels like your podcast could use a little bit of a pick-me-up, if you feel a little bit stuck with your download growth or maybe in need of a rebrand, I highly, highly, highly recommend talking to Sue and talking about getting her help with your podcast growth.
You're listening to Midlife Strategies for Badass Women, the no BS podcast for women over 40 who are sick of playing by someone else's rules. I'm your host, Sue Willoughby, badass midlife strategist, truth teller, and professional fire starter for midlife reinvention. Around here, we don't do fluff. We do real talk, bold strategies, and badass breakthroughs. Because midlife isn't a crisis, it's your damn power move. If you're all in, unapologetic, and ready to reinvent, let's get started. Hello, my beautiful, badass listener. Hey, today I'm really excited because my guest she's very special. And when I first met her, I resonated with so many of the things that she was talking about. And she's gone through her own journey and come out in a place where she educates women and shows them a path, and a path that's relatively easy to discover their passion and create a passion project without feeling like they have to blow up their lives or do something totally crazy. Her motto is let it be easy. And if it's not easy, then let's figure out a way that we can help you let it be easy. Today's guest is the multi-talented and magnetic Emily Schickli. She is the founder of the Compass Club, where she helps busy mid-career women launch passion projects without burning out or making risky leaps before they're actually ready. Blending science-backed strategies with spiritual practice, Emily's clients don't just start something new, they 2x their energy, slash their stress, and finally feel time rich. And isn't that something that we all want these days? We feel very time scarce. So Emily's going to show us how to feel time rich. Emily has a decade in tech and workshops led for giants like Google, Meta, Microsoft. Emily brings serious credibility to the table, alongside certification in everything from life coaching and NLP to Reiki and shamanic practice. Oh, and when she's not coaching, she's writing a romantic fantasy novel and hanging out with her Havanese pup, Mac. So let's get ready to feel energized, inspired, and get ready to rediscover your purpose. Hello, beautiful listeners. Welcome to another episode of Midlife Strategies for Badass Women. And today I have a very special guest. I'm so excited to talk to her. We've had a little pre-conversation, but I can't wait to share the information that she has to bring because it's really important to women in midlife that are going through transformations and, whether it's career, life, whatever, this, that, and the other thing. We all think, oh my God, what's my next phase going to look like? Well, today I have someone here to help you figure that out. I would like to welcome my guest, Emily Schickli. Emily, please join us. How are you today?
Woohoo! I'm great, Sue.
Woo-hoo.
I'm so excited. Yeah, woo-woo. Super excited to be here for this conversation, to continue connecting with you and connect with all of our listeners today.
I love it. I'm so excited. Well, I kind of, gave a little bit of a little teaser about what you do. I also work with women in midlife, and I think that we are at that phase in our life. I'm a little bit further down off the a little bit left of center in the midlife track. But still, reinventing ourselves or wanting to try something new and just not knowing where to start. So I'd love to talk a little bit about, I want to hear from you how you got into coaching at this juncture in your particular, where you are in your life path, and why you settled on helping women transition or find their passion projects and so forth. So tell me what you're all about.
Yeah, absolutely. So in a nutshell, I help women finally do what lights them up. And there's so many obstacles that get in the way of that, as we all know, right? Mm-hmm. Whether that's actually figuring out what it is that lights you up in the first place, or having the bandwidth and the time, space, and energy to actually do it, right?
Yeah.
And the way that I stumbled across this, well, I say that like it was just, somewhere in the middle of the sidewalk and I'm walking along and there's my answer, folks. But
did you wish it was that easy?
I really do. Yeah. With maybe like a big arrow pointing, like this is what you're meant to do. Just quit the side quests.
That would be
Isn't that the life?
Stuff happens like in cartoons and movies and stuff, but yes.
Totally.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm getting the like stranger than fiction plot coming through,
Totally.
if I had a narrator for my life. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I was working in tech, specifically education technology. I have 10 years of experience in that, but somewhere around like the halfway point, things got a little murky, to say the least. I was working for this company in the UK, but in San Francisco. I was based in San Francisco. And so, as you may imagine, with the time zones, it ended up being that I was working about 10 to 12 hours a day. Oof. I'd hop on the Caltrain for my 2-hour commute, and I would start clacking away at 6 a.m. Needless to say, after a few months of doing that, that wasn't sustainable. And my body made it very clear to me that I could not continue doing this. So I had everything you could possibly think of: daily migraines, gut issues, everything that chronic stress can build up to. And I had to face it. I couldn't keep going at this rate. Otherwise, I would have to quit, take medical leave, or completely change my life. So instead of taking that extreme approach of putting everything on pause, I intuitively started running these experiments, which later actually became core to my method and how I teach women now, which is cool. And in the process of running these experiments, I was like, okay, I'm feeling exhausted. What are some ways to boost my energy? And so I started working with therapists, energy workers, Chinese medicine practitioners, as well as all of the usual suspects in Western medicine, specialists, all the things. And over time, I started to gain my energy back. And I was implementing meditation, yoga, all of these different self-care practices. And it turns out that my own journey then crystallized into this clarity of, oh, wow, I actually have figured something out here that could be useful to other people. And so that's kind of my origin story. Originally, it started with, I want to help people with digestive health. And then it was stress relief and burning out in corporate. And then it's over time morphed into helping people with their purpose, their energy, and their time. And now overall helping them start a passion project and finally do what lights them up.
Love that. And the thing is, they're all those things that you talked about, like when you talk about, I want to help people with gut issues, I want to help people with this, I want to help all those things, they're all together. It's all the same thing. And then it sounds like when you realize, okay, let me do something that makes me feel good. When we do things that make us feel good, we do feel good. We feel better. Our body responds positively. So I love that you, I'm sorry that you had to go through the physical shenanigans that you went through, but our bodies will only take so much because they're like, okay, we're holding all this stuff for you. We're holding all this stuff for you. And then they're like, I can't, I can't hold that anymore. So something happens. And
absolutely,
it happens to so many women, especially, I think, where their bodies just give out. And I've had a lot of guests on that have a very similar thing where it's like, what the heck? Okay, time to stop. It's time to move on.
Right. Yeah. And the way that I like to think of it is our body's our primary relationship. Right. We only get one in this lifetime, and it is part and parcel to what it means to be human. We can't be a human without a body. And so that's going to be where we're first receiving feedback. And neuroscience research shows that 95% of all human behavior is actually determined by our unconscious beliefs and desires. And our body is part of that. And so it's interesting because I think the more that I have heard many coaches' stories, right, we all have some version of this story of hitting some kind of rock bottom and our body letting us know, or maybe it's our relationships or sort of external circumstances, but our body's impacted, right? And we get to that point where we have to do something different.
Yeah, exactly. And I know that you've worked, you're a certified Reiki practitioner, shamanic practitioner, NLP, hypnosis. I mean, you've done a lot of different modalities. You've explored a lot of different modalities. Tell me a little bit more about that and which ones spoke to you more than others, or if there were, some that really you're like, yeah, I really resonate with that one.
Yeah, I love that question. So it's hard to choose. It's kind of like choosing a favorite book on my bookshelf that's crammed with more books than maybe there's room. But I love the blend. Personally, I love the blend of science-backed strategies and spiritual practices because I believe we have to have both in order to address all aspects of who we are as humans. And I know you're about that too. So I'm preaching to the choir here.
That's okay.
If I had to, right? Yeah, totally. If I had to choose, I would say that right now in my coaching practice, I use NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming, and human design and shamanism the most.
I love that combination. That's great.
Yeah.
Yes. Human design is something that I learned about in the past couple of years, much by accident. I saw a presentation. I was going to be a guest on somebody's podcast, and they said, you need to watch some of my episodes first. I'm like, okay. And I watched this one, and it was about human design. I'm like, that's really cool. And then that same person was on a mastermind that I was part of. And I'm like, okay, this is clearly something that I need to pay attention
to. A sign,
to.
Yeah.
And I learned more about myself just from doing that, going through and figuring out what type I was. I had been acting as a generator for really most of my life, just push, do. And yeah, I did get stuff done, but at what cost? I wasn't really paying attention to, I do know that I would, need to recharge and do all this other stuff. So I was under the full, understanding that I was a generator. I didn't even know what that was at the time. And so I did the test. I put in my birth date wrong. And I'm like, see, told you I was a generator. And I'm like, but wait a minute. I wasn't born in December of whatever. I had put it in incorrectly. So when I put my correct birth date in and time and everything, I was like, oh, I'm a projector. I don't have my own energy source, which is a little scary. I'm like, whoa. And how projectors are meant to go through the world is very different than how generators and manifesting generators and all those. So for those of you who don't know anything about human design, we'll talk about that.
Yes, we can rewind.
That's a whole other episode.
Yeah, totally. I can give a nutshell description, but before that, I have to say, Sue, it's so funny because when I first heard about human design, I actually spent a whole year thinking I was a projector because I had put my time zone in wrong. I translated it to UTC or whatever, but I'm actually a manifesting generator, which is also the opposite. So
yeah. Oh, isn't that funny?
Fascinating. It's really funny, which is all to say that, there is a little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy piece to everything. And also it's a really great tool that combines astrology, Kabbalah, the I Ching, and the chakra system. So all of these ancient bodies of wisdom together into one unified system that you can kind of use like your cheat code, if you will, to figure out, what your purpose is, how you could start to experiment your way to finding and manifesting that purpose in a physical form or some kind of project. So I really love using it for that reason.
We're kind of jumping all over the place here, but
I know, but I'm here for it.
All of this stuff is so fascinating, and I just want to like talk about everything. So tell us a little bit more about. So you've got the human design piece, you got the shamanic piece, and then you said you also, and this is the core around how your system, your method works. Tell me a little bit more about the other two pieces, the shamanic piece and the other, and the NLP, how they all play together.
Yeah. So I would say, zooming out, the core method and kind of core journey really that I walk people through is 3 steps. One is getting clarity. So what do you actually want? Who are you really? What are your core values? What are the breadcrumbs that you might want to start following? So it's not about creating a 5-year plan or all of the SMART goals or forecasting your life all the way to death kind of thing. It's more about just getting enough clarity to start taking action, because I find actually that more clarity comes from action than like sitting and dreaming and spinning our wheels with all the vision boards, even though that's fun. But that's oftentimes a hiding strategy to rolling up your sleeves and doing some things. So clarity, just enough clarity, is like phase 1. And then phase 2 is building capacity. So it's one thing to know how you want to change, right? Or even what you want to change. And it's another thing to actually do it. That's oftentimes the scariest part. Yeah. So what I teach, which leans on NLP as well as nervous system regulation, is how you can actually use the language of your body to expand your capacity to do what scares you and start to make it less scary over time, right? Through incremental shifts. And the human design piece also is in here as well, right? So it's in the clarity section of helping you find purpose and what you really want and desire, but it's also, well, how do you operate? So in human design, there's a type, like what Sue was mentioning, and that helps you understand how you make better decisions versus like how I make better decisions. And then with phase 3, which is around building confidence, it's really running those little experiments. So I call them bite-sized life experiments, where it's just like the little tweak and you see how it goes, takes the pressure off. It gets you into this play mindset of like almost treating your life like a giant science experiment, right? There's no high stakes here. You're just having fun. You're seeing what works. And I use a lot of energy practices in that work as well, from shamanism in all 3 phases, but also in that piece as well. And so those 3 phases then function like a flywheel, because it's not just a linear path. Okay, I got clarity, I built capacity, now I'm confident forever, right? Nothing's changing, Sue. We're here for life, But in reality, as we all know, we start to want different things. We start to build our capacity at different levels, right? And so we need to then continue to grow to meet that. So you can actually go through these 3 phases again and again, but it's not like you're running around a racetrack. It's more like you're leveling up to another layer of a spring. Like if you picture a 3D spring in time and space, it may feel like you're kind of going back and revisiting similar themes, but you're actually growing exponentially each time.
Yeah.
So that's why I call it a flywheel.
Yeah, I love that. It's, we both have tech backgrounds. And so in any kind of product development or whatever, it's sort of similar, where it's like, plan, create, test, and you just keep going. There's many iterations of the thing. And I feel like that's kind of how my life has been, where I'll just be like, mine wasn't quite that controlled, but you're like, all right, I'm going to try this now. And then I'll go do that. And then it's like, oh, okay. And then, did I like that? No, no. Okay. Well, let's go back around again. What am I curious about? So it sounds like, and I love the fact that you said they're little bite-sized pieces. What was the word that you used?
Bite-sized life experiments. Yeah.
Yes, I love that. I love that. It's the same thing. I talk about little baby steps, right? And in the coaching that I do with horses, we, work in seasons, and seasons, keep going. So you might be in fall or winter with one thing in your life, and you might be in spring or summer with another thing in your life. So there's lots of things all happening at the same time. So you work with women, and I just want to clarify here, because, what you're talking about, you're not talking about someone comes to you. So if a client comes to you, where are they, and where do they want to be? Because I think a lot of people think, I have to, if I come talk to Emily, or if I come talk to Sue, or if I come talk to somebody else, then I get clarity, and I'm going to have to do this thing. Like you said, you don't stay in, whatever forever. How does that work with your passion projects?
Yeah. So what I've found is that I have women who come to me in one of two modes. One mode is they're telling their friends, I'm busy, I'm overwhelmed, I don't have enough time for myself. But secretly, maybe they're feeling like, I don't actually know who I am anymore.
Interesting.
Right? The other kind of starting point for women is they're saying they're busy, they're tired, they don't have time for themselves, but maybe they have clarity on wanting to create something that's just for them, that's just theirs, or wanting to, instead of just having only a successful life on paper, but actually feel that internal purpose alignment, right? And so those are kind of two phases, which is to say the first woman probably also secretly wants purpose and alignment, but may feel like that's out of her depth, or she doesn't even have capacity to start thinking about that. So in my process, everybody starts with nervous system regulation, and then self-care, and then their passion project. And you can stay in different phases for as long as you need. There's no pressure here. Not about that. This is not like a, old school bro marketing coach being like, and you're going to go from A to Z and whatever. 3 months, 90 days.
Yeah.
This is more about honoring the season you're in. I love how you mentioned seasons. I also talk about working in cycles, because as women, we are cyclical beings, right? And I find that even if you already know, I want to start a yoga business, or I want to create a collection of really amazing paintings and show it in a gallery. Even if you have that kind of clarity, we all benefit from creating the foundation across your life to support you actually bringing that dream into reality. Because if you don't have a regulated nervous system, and if you don't have a consistent, what I call soulful self-care practice, then when you start taking action on a dream that's a little scary, right?
It's just going to add to the chaos.
Exactly. It adds to the chaos. And oftentimes we come up with reasons why not to continue.
Yeah.
Why not to go on a podcast and talk about your passion project, for example. Why not to say no to a social event, even a small thing, so that you can work on your beautiful paintings. So when we have a regulated nervous system, we actually have the capacity and the clarity within ourselves to say, no, this is my focus. I'm going to choose this over maybe the familiar pattern or the familiar yes that I used to do.
How does one regulate one's nervous system?
Isn't that the $1 million question?
When one's nervous system is out of whack? We all know, right? But we don't.
Yeah.
We don't know. We know something's not right, but we don't know what. So how do you even begin to regulate your nervous system?
Yeah. So it starts with awareness. And I think you're already hinting at that. Maybe our listeners, maybe you have heard this spiritual truism of, if I don't know exactly the phrasing coming to mind right now, but it's if you don't listen, the universe will present you with a feather and then maybe a brick and then a Mack truck, right? And my burnout story at the beginning, that was the Mack truck moment for me. We don't want to get to the Mack truck moment. And so the key is to start to recognize what a feather feels like, right? And you might start with what a brick feels like and then start to dial it back and become more sensitive to your own body's signals and see what a feather feels like. So a really simple framework that our listeners can start to play with is just think back to a moment, maybe this week, where you felt stressed. And if you're down to play, Sue, you're down to play. Okay.
Let's play.
So think of a moment. You don't have to share I love it. Right? Right. So if you think of a moment, Sue, this week where you were stressed out, you don't have to share the details of what was happening, but just think about that moment. How did that stress show up for you?
For me, usually, and, just from, this week, let's say, I get just tired. Like, I just feel like I just want to sit down and not do anything. And I don't feel energized. I just feel tired. Like I told you I was teaching all week. And so that was a block of time when I didn't get to do what I want. Not that I always have to do what I want. But I just felt tired, and like, plus it's raining here. I live in Seattle, and it's just been raining nonstop for 100 years. And I just feel just kind of blah, right? Like I don't have a lot of energy. Like I'll put my energy into what I needed to put into to get through that 4 hours of teaching. And then I'm just like, I don't want to do anything. Like I just want to take a nap. So as a projector, that's me needing to, get into my little charging station for a while.
Yep, your human donut bed.
So it shows up with as fatigue, and maybe some, body aches and pains and stuff. So but that's basically it for.
Yeah, awesome. So I'm going to do this both meta-wise and in our conversation. So for everybody listening, so the first question was like, how does it show up for you? Open-ended, right? And Sue has shared physical tiredness. She also shared a couple thoughts like, oh, I don't really want to do this, right? So that's the inner narrative. And then she also shared more like physical body aches and pains. So if we looked at the physical cues, those are going to be the most easy for Sue to recognize in future, because those are the first things that came to mind, right? Maybe a little bit of the thought narrative. So then there are a couple of different stress responses. There are 4 kind of standard ones, and then there are more based on trauma responses and so forth. But this kind of low energy, not wanting to move, feeling blah, is oftentimes associated with a freeze response, which is kind of in the hypoarousal. So it's not adrenalized, but it's more of a shutdown. And so when we're in a shutdown, there are different things that we want to do versus if we're in like spiraling anxious thoughts, like feeling really angry, right? That's a different kind of energy. So even if you aren't getting technical and like naming which type of stress response you have, because that kind of gets into the weeds a little bit, just think about like, what are the signs that your body is showing you? And what would feel good to honor those signs? So since Sue mentioned low energy and like wanting to take a nap, maybe take a nap, right? And you can then dial it further and think about, well, what are some really nourishing physical activities or physical movements that you can do that communicate in your body's own language? Hey, it's okay. Like you can rest now. It's safe to relax. Because oftentimes, I think in old school coaching world, we try and like talk ourselves out of a state, but that doesn't really have a lasting effect, and your nervous system doesn't understand verbal language. It's kind of like if your head was speaking English, but your body speaks Spanish. There's a disconnect. You might have some common words, but you want to be speaking in Spanish if you're trying to talk to your body. So there are a lot of different like specific nervous system tools. One of my favorites for freeze response is havening. And you basically bring both hands together like you're going to clap, but then slowly drag one hand down the other. and just notice what it feels like to touch that hand. And then reverse it and feel what it feels like to be touched by your hand. Now, sometimes people get a little heebie-jeebie with this exercise, so you can do it on your pants or your sleeves if that feels less uncomfortable for you. Yeah. But the key is you're just signaling, right? Deep breaths.
Yeah, it's very calming. Yeah.
Right. Like, wow, there's not actually any threat right now. Because on the level of the nervous system, why we go into a stress response is because there's a perceived threat. So by doing something like slow, soothing touch or actually taking a nap and closing your eyes, you're telling your body in its own language, it's safe. We can rest now. And over time, the more that you do that and create this new pattern, you'll retrain your nervous system so that you can actually have capacity. You don't go into collapse when, say, you're teaching for a week. Instead, maybe in between teaching sessions, instead of just doing a bathroom break, do a little havening. Take a couple deep breaths. Take a nice big yawn and a stretch and be like, I'm so juicy and relaxed in my body, right? It's not about, bypassing the feeling. It's more about signaling a safety.
Yeah, I like that. That's good. Very good.
So just to recap for our listeners, it's like awareness, figure out how you're feeling, right? And how do you know you're feeling that? And then pair something nice for yourself that communicates safety for those feelings in the moment. And then over time, you'll start to recognize, well, what actually causes those feelings in the first place, right? And then you can get to the feather. So what is that first little tickle of the feather from the universe in our metaphor here? And start to preempt that so that you're not getting to the brick and you're not getting to the Mack truck.
Yes. It sounds very similar to the work that I do with horses.
I know. That's why I love it. It's so cool.
We need
Tell
to
us
do a
more.
workshop together or something.
Yeah.
No, but very similarly, because of the way that they go through life, they're very sensitive. They feel a lot of feathers. Like it could be a tiny fly on their back, but they hear things that we don't hear. They see things that we don't see. They're just, because they're prey animals, they're constantly vigilant about their surroundings. So they're very much in the moment and they're very much in their bodies. And so being around them and being connected with them at a heart-centered level, their hearts are, once again, there's a little bit of science-y stuff in there too. And when we connect with them that way, then it also, we sync up with them and then we become more aware and what's going on in our bodies. And I notice that when I'm working on a horse, if I'm doing, equine massage or I'm doing a session with them, I do Reiki on my horse all the time. And he's a very big quarter horse. He's 16 hands. He's 1,200 pounds. He's an appendix quarter horse. He's big. And he, when I do Reiki on him, it's totally hands off because he's so sensitive for a big guy. And it's interesting to just watch him just melt away. And then I sync up with him and I'm just like, oh boy, okay. Can I just curl up with you and we'll just take a nap together? So it's really, so the work that I do with horses is very grounding and very centering and very, somatic in nature.
I love that. I'm like, I'm next trip to Seattle soon and we're going to do it.
Visit.
Yeah.
Yes, please do. It'll be so fun. Yeah, I like that. Okay, so now I'm all soothed out. So
And now it's nap time, everyone. We're going to pause here.
Right after this podcast, we're going to have a little snooze, everyone. I love it. That was a really good exercise to go through. And I think that a lot of times we don't give ourselves permission to do that. If we do have a little break, it's like, oh, I got to go get a coffee or I got to go do something to keep me going. Well, by recharging, it's going to keep you going longer than a hit of caffeine, for sure.
100%. Yeah. And I think that's the real challenge is because we all have this internalized, and this is going to sound a little lofty here, but I know you're here for it. Right? We all have internalized capitalism. you know? And so as part of that, especially say maybe our listeners have also worked in corporate or have had some kind of high powered intensive job, even being a parent can be high intensive, right? If we've been constantly exposed to that level of adrenaline and cortisol, that's what our nervous system is used to. And what's familiar feels safe, even if cognitively and consciously we don't actually want that for ourselves. On some level, what's familiar, what we've been doing, what is ingrained in us feels safe. And if we want to change our life, if we want to change our circumstances, if we want to pursue something that feels more purposeful and meaningful, that's actually unsafe. And so part of the path of creating a passion project, starting a business, pursuing some kind of art magnum opus, whatever it is for you, that is outside of your comfort zone. And so, you know, a lot of people say, rip off the Band-Aid, take the scary leap, you know, just go do the thing. But in reality, that leads to collapse. And so that's why I love these practices and this like experiment approach and this awareness of the feather, the brick, and the Mack truck that we've been talking about, because we need to titrate those changes. We can't just like jump off the cliff and expect to fly.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I do love that, where we do find that the normal, whatever that is, it is our normal operating, you know, like growing up with an alcoholic. My normal MO was like uncertainty and not knowing what, you know, I never knew what to expect. And so I'm always on high alert. I'm like, what's going to happen now? And, you know, my comfort zone was discomfort. So then when you're around something that feels soothing and everything, you're kind of just like, all right, what's going to happen next? I don't trust this. I don't trust it. It's not good. You know, that was sort of my MO, right? Where I didn't trust, rather than I was scared. I was just like, yeah, I guess I was fear, but it was like, I don't trust you because you're being nice to me. Why is that happening? So and so it was a long journey. I mean, you know, figuring that out, understanding it, and then being okay with it. Like, oh, people can like me. I can be, you know, I don't have to be angry and frustrated and, you know, defensive all the time, because that is exhausting. Ugh.
Yeah. Seriously. Yeah. And that takes time, right? It takes time to go through that process. Yeah.
Yes.
And support and all the things. And also it's 100% possible because our brains can change. How magical is that?
We can rewire our brains. And that's the beautiful thing. So I want to talk a little bit more about your the Compass Club and how that fits into the Passion Project, and sort of how, if people are joining your Compass Club or going through your program. And I also want to know, like, what's your Passion Project aside from the Compass Club and helping women? Because it sounds like the steps that you're teaching other women are the same steps that you went through. So you're like, oh, I think I'm onto something here, as you mentioned previously. So I'd like to talk a little bit about the Compass Club, Passion Projects, and why they're so important with the women that you work with and yourself.
Yeah. So the Compass Club is the container, so to speak, in which I walk women through the process that we've just talked about. And it is a community-based container. So it's not just one-on-one, in the sense that you also get access to other women who are going through the same process, right? And at different stages. And it's funny, I hosted a silly little holiday party for the Compass Club virtually as a fun community gathering. And we shared, you know, top takeaways, top learnings. A lot of people were mentioning how powerful human design was. The main takeaway was the community and how powerful it is to witness other women going through different phases and sharing their own takeaways, because we need that mirroring. And I think it's so easy, especially in midlife, to feel alone and like you're the only person going through this big shift, especially if your friends and family don't really get it, or, you know, they're thinking about different things. So I really love the community piece of that.
Yeah.
And so it's really a combination of live support, that community feel, and teaching these practices through experiences. And then I'm like a total curriculum design nerd. So I have lots of different ways for learning with like a private podcast because I work with people who are busy. And let's be real, no one has time to sit down and watch hours of video content. I don't. So why would you, So
Right.
yeah, so it's really designed to be accessible and like walk with you through this experiment process.
Very cool. I like that. I like
Yeah.
the design of that. And you're so spot on about community. Like if I'm having a retreat and people are watching one person in the arena with the horse and their session, things are coming up for them. And like you said, first of all, the horse is also mirroring what's going on with the person that they're working with, but everybody else is seeing and they're going, I see them nodding and they're taking notes and they're like, yes. And so I do think community is very powerful. And especially now we can feel so isolated. I mean, I honestly don't think we've recovered 100% from the pandemic. It's still weird. There's still some weird thing that happened during the pandemic that we haven't quite recovered from. So, so I think community is really important because it also does, we, like you said, we don't feel alone. We understand that there's other people going through the same things or very similar things, or that have gone through something in the past that we have, so that whole sharing and supportive nature of a community is really important.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. And oftentimes we can't see what we can't see. There's that saying of like, you can't read the label from inside the jar.
The blind spot.
Yeah, exactly. And it's so helpful, of course, to have a coach, to have an expert, to have a horse mirroring that back to you.
Yeah.
And also it's really sweet and empowering to have other people who are peers going through that process with you, mirroring that back, which is really cool to see.
Yeah, I think that's great. Tell me a little bit more about passion projects. We talked about it a little bit, but I want to know more about, because a lot of times, a lot of the passion projects that you mentioned sounded like they were a bit more on the creative side of things or on the creative spectrum. I think especially if somebody that's working in corporate America and they've got a very high level corporate job, high performance, so, always on, to then say, God, I really wish I could just paint or I could do something else. That's a big transition in and of itself, to honor that part of your inner self that really wants to be creative. Do you find that is difficult for people to deal with or to understand, like how I can be this heavy duty corporate executive and then paint pretty flowers on the side and not feel weird?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think there are a few things there, right? In that I'm a big believer that oftentimes having the opposite container for yourself can be the medicine that you need in order to revitalize the first one. So in more specific terms, I have found that, like, for example, I have a client, she is a tech leader. She manages a ton of different direct reports at a big company. And she has 2 little daughters as well. And so she's working a lot. She has a family. She has a full life.
Yes.
And she has a secret, right? I'm like, wow, okay.
And
even that is
that
enough.
passion project, where's that?
Right. And she has this secret dream of having her own coaching business and transitioning into coaching. It's not that she's, painting on the side per se, but it's more that she has this calling within herself to help other people in their careers by leveraging all of her leadership experience and, of course, like her new coaching training that she's been going through. And the cool thing about a passion project is I would define it really as like a devotional practice. So it can be creative. It can be something where you think, oh, it's painting or crafting or something like that. But it can also be something else that's aligned with your purpose. So career coaching, it could even be accounting, as long as it's something that really lights you up and gives you that feeling of, oh, wow, I'm doing something important. I'm creating something here. It feels mission aligned. And so for this client, it's career coaching. And through running experiments, she's found, and I've seen this to be true across the board with everyone, but she's found that by doing career coaching on the side, she's currently training. So she's doing some pro bono beta clients, but then also coaching her direct reports. She actually got an award at work.
Wow.
Yeah. So like her passion project actually improved her performance at work and her recognition at work. And I found the same for myself. So when I go, kind of go back to my story, I burned out, I went through my healing journey. I started becoming a yoga teacher. And I started teaching yoga classes at the workplace where I worked for my day job. And I taught twice a month. And it was so successful, they asked me even to do an offsite for our clients when they came in to town for a summit. Yeah, it was super cool. A bunch of professors. It was very cool. And not only was that very enriching for me, I could bring my passion into the workplace. It was recognized and celebrated and helping my colleagues. But I actually became happier. I started to not care as much. I wasn't as stressed about all of the stakeholders nitpicking different things about all these email campaigns that I was coding and writing. I was in email marketing. I just wasn't as attached to that because I had something outside of work that was mine. And so it has this beautiful give and take, this amplifying positive feedback loop, whatever you want to call it, effect, where it's not a compartmentalization. I think that's kind of a myth that we think about, this work-life balance, right? Where you have two lives, but actually we just have one, just like we have one body, right? And so I found that when we give ourselves permission to pursue something that really does light us up, that then has a ripple effect in every other part of our lives as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Relationships, work, everything. You feel energized when you get up in the morning because there's this thing that you're doing that totally lights you up. And like you said, I love that you brought that up, where you don't have to balance one thing. You don't have to give one thing a priority over another. It can all coexist, and so each piece can support the other pieces if you feel good about something, if you have something in your life that you're passionate about. And I think people just don't understand. They think it's going to have to be one more thing that they fit in. So what I'm hearing you say is, it's not one more thing. It's kind of the thing that will make everything else work.
Yes. I can see it now. That's going to be on my homepage, Sue. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Yep. No, it's so true. It's so true. And I see it over and over again. And that's with every niche. So, even if we have a listener here sitting, driving, what have you, walking, listening to us now, being like, okay, I'm not stressed out corporate person, but I don't really feel like painting a pet portrait for fun. What would I do? It's again coming back to this question of, well, what are you thinking about all the time? What are you researching? What are the breadcrumbs in your life? What journey have you been on that's showing you, hey, maybe follow this little thread and it might lead you to something cool. Yeah. Because I imagine, Sue, when you were working in tech back in the day, it wasn't immediately apparent that you would be working with horses and somatic coaching.
No, not necessarily. I knew I always loved them, and they've always been a thread throughout my life. And I always just felt good around them. But I didn't, and different things that I had done, volunteering at this thing, doing that with the horses, just little, like you said, little breadcrumbs that I was following, because I like to follow breadcrumbs. And sometimes it's not just a breadcrumb, it's a squirrel. So that's subtle. Just like, look over here. But it's so true about building the awareness. And I tell people, just start being curious, not just even curious about what lights you up, because those things will start to be more apparent when you take off the glasses that you've been, looking at the world through your rose-colored glasses or whatever. Even when you're going on a walk, if you're walking down the same street, I encourage people, find 3 things on your walk that you have not noticed before. So it's just going to open you up to be more aware of using all your senses. What are you hearing? What are you seeing? What are you smelling? What do you taste? There's a meditation I'd love to do before we go in with the horses. It's just that kind of a 5 senses meditation. So you can be a little bit more aligned with the horses.
I love that one too. The 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yeah. So good.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, another way to say it is it's bringing all parts of you online.
Online. I love it. Gotta get the tech in there.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. 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 And I would say, and I would say a passion project is maybe the physical manifestation of that. It's like a low pressure vehicle for you to start to experiment to see what that might look like. And it might be something that you later turn into a business, but I don't actually recommend monetizing it right away because that puts the pressure on, puts on a clock. Yeah. And you don't need more pressure, right, at this stage of life.
Right. So just experiment, enjoy, play. I love that you bring play into it because we get to a certain age, we don't know how to play anymore. But when we were kids, I was an only child. So I had to play by myself all the time. Well, not all the time. That sounded pathetic, but I used to get a lot of auto-amuse, right? That sounded weird too. Let me rephrase that. But I learned ways to I made up games and we do fun things.
Totally.
We don't do that when we get to a certain age. We're like, I can't do that. That would just be silly. I'm not doing that. No, so what? Be silly. Who cares?
Yeah. And that's another form of what we were talking about earlier with what becomes familiar is what feels safe. And oftentimes in this self-actualization growing up process, play becomes unsafe because we're adding pressure of like, well, now I have responsibilities and like, who's got time to play? And so another way to think about it is like, you're making play feel safe again. And that actually is the vehicle that's going to get you to purpose and more fulfillment and more energy and more time. It's almost like we're turning back the clock in our new iteration with all of our life knowledge along.
And I like how you put it, that we're making the things that we don't do anymore, and we don't do them anymore because they don't feel safe. We're making them feel safe again, whatever that is, whether it's play, whether it's, just experimenting or whatever it is. It's okay to kind of, go out on a limb a little bit further and a little bit further and a little bit further. Yeah. And I know that feeling because I've done it myself. So I really appreciate it, but I love how you talk about these things. Emily, as we're kind of wrapping up here, what is something that you'd like to leave the audience with? Maybe it's a thought, maybe it's a little exercise, maybe it's a combination of both, whatever you feel comfortable sharing that you'd like to share with everybody. Yeah,
I think one of the core values that I teach in the Compass Club that gets the most repeated back to me, so it's a good sign, is let it be easy. Let it be easy. We have this tendency to overthink, overcomplicate, adrenalize, and turn it into this like school project where we think we're going to be graded on how good we are at the end, whether we do that consciously or not. And so the invitation I would say is let it be easy. Instead of finishing listening to us and being like, okay, now I need to go sit down and make my 6-month plan to find passion. Instead of that, maybe it's, okay, what's one thing that I could do today that might give me a greater sense of aliveness? Or one way to play today? Or what one time that I can do my nervous system reset? And just see how it goes from there. Give yourself that permission slip to play. And if you want more support with that, I would be happy to support you. I know Sue would be happy to support you. And I'm also happy to share a gift with all of our listeners as well.
That would be awesome.
As some tools. So I have this stress relief, Choose Your Adventure stress relief kit. Since we've been talking a lot about stress relief. And in it, I have a couple of meditations. I have a breakdown of the 4 most common stress responses that I was kind of hinting at today, and like a list of all these bite-sized self-care practices that you can do. So that could be a great starting point.
And I love that it's called Choose Your Own Adventure. So right
That's
there,
right.
that's kind of encouraging you to go in a little different direction, have an adventure, do something fun. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
And so I will put that in the show notes if you have a link for that.
Yeah.
And where can people find you, see what you're all about, and connect with you?
Yeah, my website is the best place to go. So it's Emily Schickli, Schick like the razor, or Schickli. That's a fun little way to spell it. .com. So just my name.com. And you can learn all about, different ways I can support you. I also really love hosting workshops for teams. So if you are in corporate or you have a team that you work with and your team is feeling a little burned out, I would love to facilitate an experience for them. So you can always reach out about that as well. And the Compass Club for individuals is like a really solid place to get started.
Nice. I love that. Emily, it's been a blast talking to you today. And it's just so many of the things that you talk about resonated with me. And I'm sure that they are resonating with my listeners. And if Emily has said even one thing that resonated with you or made you think, yeah, I'm going to start following the breadcrumbs, just one little breadcrumb at a time. I don't have to eat the whole piece of bread, just the breadcrumbs. And start my exploration, start choosing my adventure. Then please share this episode with a friend, get in touch with Emily, like and subscribe to the podcast. I really appreciate you showing up every week and listening and sharing the episodes and supporting my guests because they are fantastic. All right, Emily, thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciated you having here. I appreciate your insights, and you're lovely. Thank you.
Oh, you're lovely too, Sue. And I love listening to this podcast as well. So if this is your first episode, go back. There's some really amazing gems in there.
Oh, I like it. Good.
Yes.
All right. I'm going to have to ask you which ones they are, and I'm going to put them in the show notes so people will listen.
For sure.
All right, Emily, talk to you soon. And for my listeners out there, thank you so much. This has been yet another beautiful episode of Midlife Strategies for Badass Women.
Thank you.
Hey, badass listeners. Have you ever thought about starting a podcast yourself, but are just too overwhelmed, or you don't know where to start? You don't know what to talk about, or you think you have a lot to talk about, but you don't know how the heck to get started. So if you are pod curious, I am going to be having a couple of Q&A jam sessions in January, and I would love to see you there. We'll answer your questions. We'll give you some actionable tips, and you can get ready to launch your podcast in 2026. What the hell are you waiting for? There's a link in the show notes. Just click on I'm Pod Curious, and you can get registered for those events. See you soon.